When you think about the moments that define true strength, they are rarely the moments when everything is going smoothly. It is not when the stage is perfectly lit, the audience is cheering, and every word falls effortlessly into place. No, the true test of strength, the real measure of character, comes when someone tries to push you off balance, when a situation is designed to trap you, and when the pressure feels heavy enough to break even the strongest of voices. That is where composure becomes not just a skill but a superpower. Composure is the ability to hold your ground when someone else is working hard to shake it. It is the calm in the middle of chaos, the silence before a storm, and the unshakable stillness that keeps you from crumbling when others are hoping you will collapse. When Byron Donalds tried to trap Jasmine Crockett, he believed that if he cornered her with clever phrasing, with political trickery, or with verbal maneuvers, she would stumble. He believed that pressure would make her defensive or uncertain, and in that hesitation, he could take control of the moment. But what he failed to understand is that composure dismantles traps faster than any witty comeback. When Jasmine held her ground and refused to lose her calm, she shifted the entire dynamic. She didn't have to scream or stumble, she didn't have to rush or defend, she only needed one sentence, delivered with composure, to flip the power dynamic completely. That is what makes composure so powerful, it forces others to fight harder while you fight smarter. The human mind is wired to react when threatened. When attacked verbally, when challenged publicly, or when backed into a corner, the instinct is to respond emotionally, to fight back immediately, to raise your voice and defend yourself as quickly as possible. But composure is about mastering that instinct. It's about creating a pause, even if it's just a second, where you choose how you will respond instead of letting the situation dictate your reaction. That pause is where your power lies. Because in that pause, you decide not to let anger control your words, not to let fear control your body language, and not to let doubt creep into your mind. Think of the greatest leaders, speakers, or role models who inspired you. They weren't remembered for being loud or frantic. They were remembered because when the storm came, they stood steady. When attacks flew at them, they didn't crumble, they answered with clarity, with precision, and with calm strength. Composure magnifies your authority. It makes people listen because it shows that you are not shaken, no matter how intense the situation becomes. And in Jasmine Crockett's case, it proved that no matter how much someone tried to rattle her, they couldn't take her off her foundation. Composure also disarms opponents. When someone sets a trap, their strategy often depends on your reaction. They want you to get angry, to shout, to slip up and say something you didn't mean. They are waiting for you to stumble so they can point and say, "See? You're not strong enough." But when you don't give them that reaction, when you stay calm and collected, you strip away their weapon. Suddenly, the trap they built collapses under its own weight because it has nothing to feed on. That is exactly why Jasmine's one sentence worked so effectively. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it, the composure behind it, the steadiness that made her words land with undeniable impact. In our own lives, composure is tested constantly. Maybe not on national television or in a heated political exchange, but in everyday conversations, at work, at home, in friendships, and in confrontations that feel overwhelming. Someone might question your abilities, someone might doubt your decisions, someone might challenge your confidence in a way that makes you feel small. The temptation is to fire back quickly, to defend yourself in a rush, but the real victory lies in restraint. If you can pause, breathe, and answer with composure, you take control of the moment. You stop the other person from steering the narrative and instead place the steering wheel back in your own hands. It's important to understand that composure doesn't mean silence, and it doesn't mean weakness. It doesn't mean you let people walk over you or that you swallow your words when it's time to speak. Composure means you choose the timing and the tone of your response carefully. It means you don't allow someone else's chaos to create chaos inside of you. It means you carry yourself with enough confidence to know that you don't need to yell to be heard and you don't need to rush to prove your point. Sometimes the most powerful response is the calmest one, and that calmness often unsettles those who expected to see you crack. Think about the last time you were tested. The last time someone challenged you in a way that made your heart race and your voice want to rise. Maybe it was a colleague trying to take credit for your work. Maybe it was a friend who betrayed your trust. Maybe it was a stranger who disrespected you when you least expected it. In those moments, composure may feel impossible, but it is the most powerful thing you can choose. The person who yells loses authority. The person who panics loses control. But the person who stays calm, who keeps their voice steady, who looks their challenger in the eye and responds with clarity, that person wins every time, even if the world doesn't realize it in the moment. There is also something magnetic about composure. People are drawn to it because it is so rare. In a world filled with noise, arguments, and endless reactions, composure feels like silence in the middle of thunder. It captures attention. It makes people lean in. It creates an aura of respect because it shows that you are not ruled by emotions, you are ruled by choice. And choice is the deepest form of power. When you choose your response, you own the situation instead of the situation owning you. Jasmine Crockett owned her moment not because she shouted louder but because she stayed rooted in her composure, and that composure turned her words into a weapon sharper than anything Byron Donalds expected. The truth is, composure requires practice. It doesn't come naturally to most people. We live in a society that rewards instant reactions, quick retorts, and fast replies. But composure is about training yourself to slow down, to resist the urge to jump immediately, to hold steady even when your instincts scream otherwise. It's about practicing patience when someone interrupts you. It's about keeping your tone level when someone mocks you. It's about letting silence do the heavy lifting before you speak. Because silence, when paired with composure, is not empty, it's full of power. And that's why composure is not just a tool for conflict, it's a life skill. It's what helps you in negotiations when stakes are high. It's what strengthens your leadership when others look to you for guidance. It's what preserves your energy when chaos tries to drag you into its storm. It's what transforms fear into focus and anger into authority. When you cultivate composure, you build a shield around yourself that no trap, no manipulation, no attack can penetrate. Because composure says, you don't control me. I control me. There are moments in life when hours of talking cannot do what one single sentence can achieve. Words have a rhythm, a weight, and a power that can cut through noise, dismantle confusion, and strike directly at the heart of a situation. One sentence has the ability to silence a room, to end an argument, to flip a narrative, or to inspire a movement. It doesn't require length, it requires precision. It doesn't demand volume, it demands clarity. That is the lesson Jasmine Crockett demonstrated when Byron Donalds tried to trap her. He came prepared with lines, with questions designed to confuse, with a strategy to outmaneuver her. Yet in one single, unshakable sentence, she destroyed the foundation of his attempt. The crowd felt it. The silence before the cheer was the weight of realization. That is the unshakable power of one sentence delivered with confidence. In our daily lives, we often underestimate the power of our words. We think we need to say more, to explain more, to prove more. We overtalk, we rush, we fill the silence with words that dilute the message we truly want to send. But the truth is, one sentence spoken with conviction can have more impact than paragraphs of explanation. The right words at the right time can shift an entire conversation. They can save you in a moment of conflict, they can anchor you in a storm, and they can change the perception of everyone who hears them. One sentence can draw a boundary that no one dares to cross. One sentence can remind people of your value. One sentence can declare your strength. Think about history, about movements, about leaders who shifted the world. Their impact wasn't built on endless streams of words. It was often one line, one sentence that people remembered, carried, and repeated. A sentence that captured courage, that defined resilience, that spoke truth to power. People remember the words not because of their length but because of their precision and timing. That is what Byron Donalds didn't expect when he set his trap. He expected a drawn-out defense, a scramble of words, an explanation that would give him more material to work with. Instead, he was met with a single, sharp sentence that cut his attempt to pieces. The moment belonged to Jasmine Crockett because she understood that clarity outweighs complexity. The art of saying less but meaning more is one of the most overlooked skills in personal power. It's not about how much you can say, it's about how much weight your words carry. Too often, we speak to be heard rather than to be understood. We flood conversations with detail, thinking it will protect us, but what protects us is not the volume of words, it is the precision of them. When you master the ability to condense your power into one sentence, you become unshakable. You don't need to explain yourself endlessly because your words already hold their own ground. One of the reasons one sentence can be so powerful is because it leaves no room for distortion. Long explanations can be twisted, taken out of context, or broken apart by someone who is determined to trap you. But one clean, concise sentence is undeniable. It stands firm. It cannot be diluted. It cannot be bent. It simply lands, and once it lands, it cannot be undone. That's why the crowd erupted when Jasmine Crockett delivered her one-liner. It wasn't just that she responded, it was that her response was airtight, undeniable, and final. Every person has the ability to craft sentences like this. It is not a gift reserved for politicians or speakers. It is a skill anyone can develop. It comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and refusing to let someone pull you away from that. When you know your truth clearly, you don't need an essay to explain it. You don't need to defend it with countless paragraphs. You need only one sentence. And when you speak that sentence, it carries all the weight of your confidence, your experience, and your self-belief. That is what makes it land so powerfully. The danger many of us fall into is thinking that silence or brevity equals weakness. We believe if we don't argue back with as many words as possible, we will seem unprepared. But power doesn't come from length, it comes from impact. A sentence that cuts to the heart of the issue shows more preparation than a speech that circles around it. It shows you are not rattled, you are not scrambling, you are in complete control of yourself and the situation. And control is magnetic. People lean toward those who demonstrate it because it is rare, because it is admirable, and because it is effective. Consider how one sentence can shift a personal moment. In relationships, one sentence of honesty can dissolve misunderstandings. In careers, one sentence of self-advocacy can unlock opportunities. In conflict, one sentence of calm truth can disarm anger. In moments of doubt, one sentence spoken to yourself can reignite belief. Words don't just live in the world, they live inside us, shaping how we see ourselves, how we face challenges, and how we rise above traps set for us. The beauty of a sentence is that it forces you to focus on what matters most. You cannot hide behind complexity when you choose simplicity. You cannot over-explain when you cut straight to the point. And in that focus lies your greatest strength. It demands that you strip away the noise and leave only the truth. That is why one sentence, spoken at the right time, can echo louder than 1,000 speeches. It's not about the sound, it's about the strike. When Jasmine Crockett delivered her one line, it wasn't just a political win. It was a human lesson. It was proof that in any situation where someone tries to twist your words, where someone tries to trap you in their narrative, you don't have to play their game. You can create your own rules. You can refuse to be dragged into complexity and instead answer with clarity. And clarity always wins. The truth is, most people will remember how you made them feel, not the exact words you said. That is why one sentence works so powerfully. It is not just heard, it is felt. It creates a punch that lingers in the air, a moment that stamps itself into memory. People don't recall the entire exchange, they recall the single line that shattered the trap. That is the sentence that travels, that gets repeated, that becomes the headline. And that is how power is preserved through words. There is a lesson here for anyone who has ever felt cornered. You don't need to defend yourself with more words than the other person. You don't need to out-talk or out-shout them. You need to focus on distilling your truth into one unshakable sentence. Because when you can do that, you carry a weapon that cannot be countered. It is the essence of self-control and self-belief captured in words. And that is what changes everything. Life is full of traps. They don't always look like cages or snares. Sometimes they look like conversations meant to corner you, challenges designed to shake you, or situations carefully constructed to make you stumble. A trap can come in the form of a colleague trying to undermine your work, a friend disguising criticism as advice, a stranger trying to provoke you into losing control, or a public setting where someone intends to embarrass you. The truth about traps is that they are never about the trap itself. They are about the response. A trap cannot define you unless you step into it the way the other person expects. And this is where the opportunity lies, because every trap you face can become a stage where you showcase your strength. Every attempt to tear you down can become the moment you rise higher than before. Traps are not the end, they are the beginning of triumph if you know how to flip them. When Byron Donalds tried to corner Jasmine Crockett, he thought he was creating a trap she couldn't escape. He thought by framing his words cleverly, by playing the game of entrapment, he would dictate the outcome. But Jasmine Crockett turned that moment on its head. With clarity, confidence, and composure, she transformed the trap into a stage for triumph. The one who set the trap became the one caught by it, and the audience didn't cheer because of the trap, they cheered because of the triumph. That is what happens when you refuse to play by someone else's design and instead rewrite the rules in your favor. Turning traps into triumphs requires a mindset shift. Most people see traps as unfair, as threats, as reasons to panic or retreat. And while it is natural to feel those things in the heat of the moment, the truth is, traps are also opportunities. A trap means someone has recognized your strength enough to want to shake it. A trap means your presence is powerful enough that others feel the need to try to destabilize you. And a trap means you are standing in a space where growth and greatness are being tested. If you can stop viewing traps as losses waiting to happen and start seeing them as platforms waiting to be claimed, you begin to harness a different kind of power. You no longer fear the trap, you anticipate the triumph on the other side. The first step to turning traps into triumphs is awareness. You must train yourself to see beyond the surface. When someone tries to corner you with questions, don't just hear the words, see the intent. When someone tries to rattle you emotionally, don't just feel the sting, recognize the strategy. Awareness puts you one step ahead, because once you identify the trap, you rob it of its surprise. Traps thrive on catching you off guard, but awareness takes that advantage away. That's what Jasmine Crockett showed in that moment. She wasn't blindsided, she saw the intent and refused to step into it. The second step is composure, because even with awareness, the instinct to react emotionally is strong. Traps are designed to provoke, and the easiest way to lose is to give the provoker exactly what they want, an uncontrolled reaction. Composure allows you to pause, breathe, and choose your response instead of being dragged into theirs. With composure, you create a gap between the trap and the triumph. That gap is where clarity is born, where the right words form, where the strategy shifts. Without composure, you give the trap power. With composure, you take that power back. The third step is precision. Triumph doesn't come from rambling through explanations, it comes from striking cleanly and directly. Precision is about cutting through the layers of confusion and landing your truth so powerfully that there is nothing left to question. It's about saying only what needs to be said and saying it in a way that cannot be shaken. That's why one sentence was all it took for Jasmine Crockett to turn the trap into her victory. Precision makes triumph undeniable because it leaves no cracks for the trap to hold on to. But triumph is not only about defeating traps, it is about growing from them. Every trap you face teaches you something about yourself, about your strength, about the areas where you are unshakable and the areas where you still need to build. If you are trapped and stumble, it doesn't mean the end, it means an opportunity to learn and sharpen yourself for the next challenge. Triumph is not perfection, it is resilience. It is the ability to rise even when you fall, to win even when you are tested, to find light even when someone tries to drag you into darkness. Each trap is a training ground, and every time you navigate one, you sharpen your skills for the greater stages ahead. In life, the people who turn traps into triumphs are the ones who succeed long-term. They are the ones who rise in careers despite politics. They are the ones who maintain relationships despite conflict. They are the ones who keep their dignity despite provocation. The world is full of those who set traps, but very few have the patience, discipline, and clarity to rise above them and flip them into victories. That is why it is so powerful when someone like Jasmine Crockett does it in the public eye. It reminds everyone that it is possible. It shows that no matter how cleverly designed the trap is, the strength of your response can always outweigh the intent of the trap setter. You have likely faced your own traps, moments where someone underestimated you, moments where someone tried to make you stumble, moments where you were pushed into defending yourself in ways that felt unfair. But within each of those moments, there was also a chance to rise. Imagine if instead of seeing them as roadblocks, you began to see them as launchpads. Imagine if instead of reacting with panic, you trained yourself to respond with calm clarity. Imagine if instead of letting the trap consume your energy, you let it reveal your strength. That is how you turn traps into triumphs, not by avoiding them, but by owning them. One of the most important things to remember about traps is that they are temporary. They may feel overwhelming in the moment, but they pass. What lasts is the impression you leave in how you handled them. People don't remember every detail of the trap, they remember how you stood in the middle of it. They remember whether you lost yourself or whether you found your strength. And when you use traps as opportunities to demonstrate resilience, that memory outlasts the trap itself. Your triumph becomes the legacy, not the trap. Triumph is also contagious. When you flip a trap, it doesn't just empower you, it inspires others who are watching. People who see you navigate challenges without crumbling begin to believe they can do the same. They start to carry that energy into their own struggles, their own traps, their own battles. Your triumph plants seeds in the minds of others, showing them that they don't have to be defined by the situations meant to break them. They, too, can rise. And in that way, turning traps into triumphs becomes bigger than you. It becomes a ripple effect that strengthens everyone around you. There will always be people who set traps. There will always be situations designed to test your patience, your composure, your belief in yourself. But the moment you realize that every trap is also a stage, every test is also a teacher, and every attempt to break you is also an opportunity to build you, you stop fearing them. You begin to welcome them, because you know that with awareness, composure, and precision, you can transform them into stepping stones. You can use them to rise higher than anyone expected. You can use them to prove that no matter how carefully the trap is built, your triumph will always be stronger.